Hello, welcome to the self-learning podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 12, Trends and Pattern of Urbanization. And our topic is Trends and Pattern of Urbanization across states at the size class level. The size class distribution of urban population and changes therein over the past decades provides an interesting insights into the development dynamics of the country. An analysis of the 1981 and 1991 census shows that the share of population in class 1 cities has been going up consistently during the 70s and 80s. One, however, notes that the interstate variation in the share is very high and reveals a distinct regional pattern of concentration. The economically prosperous states of Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu and West Bengal have high concentration of urban population in class 1 cities, besides the smaller states like Chandigarh, Delhi, Pondicherry and Meghalaya. These may be reflections of the impact of colonial regime, wherein much of the industrial activities got concentrated in the metropolitan cities. The developed states of Gujarat, Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh also reported a high concentration of population in class 1 cities. Kerala also falls in this category as this state also reports a large number of class 1 cities. On the other hand, the less developed states of Rajasthan, Orissa, Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh exhibit a low percentage of urban population in these cities. The share of class 2 and class 3 towns, however, has remained stable in most of the states, as is the case at the national level during the 70s and 80s. The only exceptions are the smaller states like Meghalaya, Nagaland, Himachal Pradesh, Goa, Andaman and Nicobar, Iceland and Mizoram, where the number of towns in different categories is small and movement of a few towns upward or downward across the size classes makes a significant difference in the percentage shares. The share of population in smaller towns with population below 50,000 class 4, 5 and 6 have declined significantly during 80s in most of the states, where the general trend is towards concentration of population in the larger cities, lending to top-heavy urban structure. The exceptions are Goa, Sikkim and Tripura. The census of 2001 provides results which are in conformity with the 1991 census. The pattern of distribution of urban population has not changed very significantly during 1991 to 2001. The concentration in larger cities have gone up in most of the states. The states that reported a high share of population in class 1 cities in earlier years generally maintained the position in 2001 as well. Kerala too has registered an increase in this percentage figure. Tamil Nadu is the only state in which the share of cities has declined. This is due to emergence of a large number of new towns belonging to lower order size categories. Moreover, the new states of Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand report high figure for the share of class 1 cities, much higher than that of their parent states of Madhya Pradesh and Bihar respectively. The state of Uttaranchal, which is also a new state in the 2001 census, however, has lower concentration of population in these cities. much below the national average and even below the figure of the state of Uttar Pradesh. The population share of the class 2 and class 3 towns has remained stable in most of the states during the 90s as well. The exceptions are the smaller states which are movement of one or two towns upward or downwards has significant impact on the size class distribution of urban population. In case of smaller states, the percentage share of population in these size classes has gone down in almost all the states with the few exceptions of the small northeastern states. This pattern is similar for the country as well. Let us move to the next point, analysis of growth of urban centers. The present section attempts to analyze the growth rate of towns in different size classes to understand and development dynamics operating at the size class level. The growth rates of urban centers in different size classes have been computed by taking the base year classification for both initial and terminal years. This has been done to take care of the problems of graduation of towns into higher categories during a particular decade. For analyzing the dynamics of the growth or their absence in the urban centers, the average of the growth rate during the 80s and 90s have been computed. These have been worked out by classifying the urban center based on their population in the base year. It may be mentioned here that these are different from the growth rates of population for different size classes. Although the latter two have also been computed by classifying the cities and towns as per the base year population. The two figures for any category for a decade are different since the latter is computed on aggregating the population of all the cities or towns in the base and then computing the growth rates during the latter is obtained by averaging their individual growth rates. An analysis of the above tables shows that the average growth rate for class 1 cities is higher than that of other size categories in most of the states. This pattern is evident during the decade of the 80s and 90s. This reconfirms the thesis that the big cities have been experiencing higher demographic growth during 80s and 90s, as was the case in earlier decades. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with a self-learning podcast.